Just kidding. Hit the intro. What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Only Football Podcast. My name is Kyle. Wonderful to have you here today and to do another episode. We're getting a little bit closer as the season continues. We get closer to the opening game, Week 1, Kansas City, Detroit, more specifically Detroit at Kansas City to start the game. And I wanted to take some time to go over some of these over-unders that are going on right now. I wanted to mention something that Patrick Mahomes said that I think is noteworthy, especially with the conversations we've been having this year. And I also wanted to talk about Tyler Allgeier, the 1,000-yard rusher. He was a rookie for Atlanta last year, a fifth-round pick. And he had some comments to say about the Falcons drafting Bijan Robinson. And I wanted to discuss those as well. But I wanted to start by going over the over-under for the win totals for the games coming up this year for the teams, okay? So I'm going to start in the AFC East and pretty much just go down. So actually, I'm going to crack this door open before we start. A little stuffy in here. There we go. So I'm going to start with the AFC East. And the first team that I'm going to go over is the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills. Buffalo Bills have maybe missed their championship window. We're going to have to wait and see on that. But it did feel like, to be honest, that game that they had 2 years ago against the Chiefs that went back and forth, that is the reason the overtime rule changed last year. That kind of felt like if it was going to happen, that was the year it was going to happen. And we've seen this before. In 2018, in the NBA playoffs, there's a famous play where the Cavs literally have nobody besides LeBron. And the Warriors are loaded. They have Kevin Durant. They are completely loaded. And it was game 1, and the Cavs were in it right at the end. They did as well as they could have possibly done in that game. And for some reason, J.R. Smith made one of the most meme-worthy plays when he didn't know what the score was and he had the ball in his hand. Long story short, the Cavs end up losing this game. And really from that point on, you knew, like, hey, if the Cavs were unable to win game 1, what are the chances that everything is going to go as well as it went tonight? And you were right. There's something exhausting about playing your best game and losing. And I really felt the same way when the Chiefs and Buffalo Bills played 2 years ago. It was like, it was very disheartening for Buffalo, especially fans, because you really felt like if we couldn't get it done this year with the type of performance we had, are we ever going to be able to actually get there? And what you had as a manifestation of that game was Buffalo being Super Bowl favorites last year, opening up the season, playing the Rams, who were the Super Bowl champions, and winning the game by a big margin. We wouldn't know at that point that that was more of a testament to how bad the Rams were, not necessarily how great Buffalo was. But the hype was so high. And the Buffalo went and they played the Super Bowl reigning champions and they beat them by a big margin. And I would say for that moment on, Buffalo was the Super Bowl favorite. Until around, I'll say their first speed bump came against Miami when they lost against the Dolphins. But not everybody jumped ship. There were still people that were like, no, it was just the weather. And you still had your loyal fans, and even myself for most of the season, I was like, look at what Buffalo's doing offensively, look what they're doing defensively, right? They were one of the best teams in the NFL. It was clear. They were top 5 on offense, top 5 on defense. At that point in the season, no team was doing that. San Francisco, their offense didn't move up into the top 5 until late in the season. And, the Eagles started off playing a nail biter against the Lions. It took a little time for us to really know what the Eagles had there as far as how good they were. So it was all Buffalo. And this just shows you how close, or I could say how small these windows are, that you could fast forward or rewind to week 10 last year, and Buffalo is the favorite to win the Super Bowl, and they lose a playoff game. And by the way, they won one playoff game. They beat the Dolphins. But then they lose their second playoff game, and I think most people feel like we've already sang that song. It doesn't work. Buffalo is, it's like we've all moved on from Buffalo. My question is that fair? Not fair as in, is it right or is it wrong? I mean, is it fair? Like, is it accurate? Is it true? Is it a good thing? If you're trying to be right about a lot of predictions, does it make sense to move on? And I want to say not yet. Okay. I want to say not yet. We've seen this before with teams that have a way of making it to the playoffs often and then not getting the job done. All right. Peyton Manning made the playoffs a lot. Wasn't necessarily a strong playoff, contender, but regular season, best quarterback in history. I mean, regular season was his stuff. You 13-3, 14-2, you could take it to the bank every year. Peyton Manning was prepared, and he always had a spot in the seating in the playoff tree. And Buffalo has always been in the playoffs for the last 3 years now. And I think that there is an opportunity here to miss this moment, for it to fly past us. By the way, we have Bill in the chat. What's going on, Bill? Happy to have you in here. Hope you're enjoying your hump day. But Buffalo, it just kind of feels like we've all moved on from the Buffalo hype. Not only did it not come true last year, right? We're not even a full year away from Buffalo being expected to win the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl favorite, Buffalo Bills. And now it's just, Buffalo, they'll win 10.5 games. The question should be, is it fair to move off of Buffalo at this point? Like I said, Peyton Manning always had a home in the playoffs. He always made it to the playoffs. But after a couple of years, people stopped believing that Peyton Manning was going to win the Super Bowl. For whatever reason, he was not as good in the postseason as he was in the regular season. Be it weather, home field advantage, not playing in a dome, whatever. Buffalo is a team that I feel like, as long as Josh Allen is playing at the level he's playing, you can never just say they're not a contender. Buffalo, to me, is still a contender. And what's crazy is that this is something that needs to be said, because if Buffalo wins the Super Bowl this year, it would not be surprising. It shouldn't be surprising that a team that was favorited to win the Super Bowl last year, 1 year later, wins the Super Bowl. I mean, it might take them a little bit longer, but last year the expectations were here, and now they've completely dropped. And you could say it's because the Jets are in the division, and the Jets are probably going to, be a tougher opponent. Same with the Dolphins. Whatever the case is, Buffalo has not missed their championship window yet. And I'm not willing to say that they have. I think that Buffalo needs to work on a couple things, but they've had all offseason to do it. They had an early playoff exit. So you're going to have an angry team next year playing very mad. I would say they even if they split the division games, split with the Dolphins, split with the Jets, and beat the Patriots twice, Buffalo might not be as surprising as we're led to believe at this point. I don't think we should be surprised if Buffalo finds themselves in the Super Bowl representing the AFC. But like I said, it's gotten to the point where last year we were willing, because of how good that divisional game was against the Chiefs and Buffalo, we were willing to give Buffalo their flowers before week one even kicked off. And they proved it week one that they deserved it. But now, because of the early exit, we are basically saying we're not going to crown them. We're not going to crown them. We're not going to say that Buffalo could make the Super Bowl, win the Super Bowl. We're not going to do that because we did that last year. And the only thing worse than being wrong is being wrong twice in a row with the same team. But it is worth stepping back and saying, look, Manning wasn't great in the postseason, but guess what? In 2008, or was it 2007 when they played the Bears, Manning got his ring. I mean, if you show up into the postseason, let's say 7 straight years, it's possible that one of those years it's going to work out for Buffalo, right? And last year was not that year. Cincinnati was way more prepared. And I feel like for a team that was given their flowers before week one even kicked off as a Super Bowl favorite, that is what they needed to happen in the postseason, to be a sneaky Super Bowl team. This is now a team that's angry. The expectations are low. It's a lot easier to play when there's no expectations than when there's really high expectations. Now Buffalo's playing with house money. They got Aaron Rodgers in the division. Nobody's expecting Buffalo to do anything. Buffalo's still Buffalo. They still put together that game against the Chiefs, where you saw that game and wondered, look, I don't think Josh Allen's better than Mahomes, but he's up there. They are right there neck and neck. That's how you felt after watching that game. That's how the world felt after watching that game. Don't let one playoff loss deter you from everything we've seen up to this point, because that is just the world of sports. When you're high, you're too high. When you're low, you're too low. You got to find the balance somewhere with this Buffalo team and know that they are worthy and are capable of winning 12 games and representing the AFC in the Super Bowl. It would not be the biggest shocker in the world. Nobody would be shocked. So why be shocked if we say it now? Miami Dolphins, their over-unders at 9.5. Like we talked about it the last couple episodes, Miami finished top 5 in total yards offensively with a quarterback that played only 9-10 games. I think 12 tops. I expect Miami, if they can stay healthy, I don't know how to judge a guy's ability to stay healthy. It feels like a lot of it is up to chance. Is it his size? We've seen other small quarterbacks stay healthy. I don't really know what to make of it, but as far as I'm concerned, I'm not going to assume somebody gets injured, because honestly, I think that is extremely unpredictable. And if anything, it happened so many times last season. Maybe he goes on a 5-year streak. Maybe he gets a big contract every this year because Miami has the number 1 offense in the NFL. By the way, with Vic Fangio's system, bringing in Jalen Ramsey, drafting a corner, I think that Miami is going to have a top 10 defense this year. This is going to be a really competitive team. I'm sold with Mike McDaniel. I think he's a great coach. This is going to be a tough division, but I still believe when it comes to who's daddy of this division, the Buffalo Bills are still daddy until someone proves otherwise. And if Miami can stay healthy, they will be a real threat. The over-unders at 9.5. I would take the over. Um, and I think that if we could be guaranteed that Tua would stay healthy, this wouldn't even be 9.5. This would probably be 10. Um, Mike Clay's projections 10-7. We'll see. The Jets are another 9.5. So the only 10.5 is the Bills, and then the Jets and the Dolphins are at 9.5. You added Aaron Rodgers, and I have to be careful not to fall into when something looks so good on paper, but it doesn't translate to the field. Like Denver's situation last year was a perfect example. We were a quarterback away. That's all we needed. We had a lot of weapons. People that didn't keep up with Denver didn't realize how good that defense was and how many weapons we had on offense. So when we got Russell Wilson, it was like, this is a Super Bowl contender, right? The Jets are singing the same song right now. They got Sauce Gardner. We had Patrick Surtain. They got a dominant defense. They had Zach Wilson last year. And Zach Wilson was one of the worst starting quarterbacks, if not the worst starting quarterback besides Russell Wilson last year in the league. So I understand the temptation with Aaron Rodgers coming over to say, you know what? If the fact that they were winning so many games with Zach Wilson and now they just majorly upgraded, this is someone's Super Bowl favorite. I guarantee someone could justify that. But what is it like to go to a new city, new expectations, new fans, new training, new chefs, new cooks, new food, new house? I mean, it's just so much new. And to think that it's just going to work out right away. And I do believe that defenses tend to play better when their offenses are worse. It's almost something you can't simulate, right? I mean, I've seen it like Denver's always had a good defense, but when Manning was throwing 55 touchdown passes a season, Denver's defense was bad, right? And then when they won the Super Bowl in Super Bowl 50, our offense was one of the worst in the league, but we had a historic defense. It just kind of works out that way. And I don't think it's anything you can plan for, prepare for. I think it's just kind of the way the whole thing gets balanced out. You don't really know how you're going to react until you're pushed up into a corner. Your offense has only put up 7 points and it's the fourth quarter, and you cannot give up a touchdown because because your offense can't put up points. Your defense plays different. It taps into something different. When you know that your offense can go out there and put up a touchdown, go down 14 in the fourth, and it's no big deal, I feel like I don't think that they go out there saying, oh, let's just kind of play a little lackadaisical because we know that Rodgers can cover it. I think it's subconscious. It's something that we really can't measure. But I think it's real. So I am interested. Is Aaron Rodgers and Nathaniel Hackett going to be able to get that offense rolling? And if that offense gets rolling, will the defense be able to hold up their end of the deal? Why do you I mean, look at the Chiefs and Andy Reid. I mean, they've been the most dominant offense since Patrick Mahomes has taken over, and they've yet to have a good defense. Why is that? Yet to have a good defense. Worst red zone defense last year. It's something about football we don't talk about because as long as you don't know how to put your finger on it and name it, it's pointless to bring it up. But I'm going to bring it up and I'm going to say, I don't know what to call that, but I believe I've seen enough football to know it's a real thing. Um, and I think that's why New England was able to win so many Super Bowls is because Bill Belichick is a defensive coach. So even when Tom Brady had that offense rolling, Bill Belichick had the defense always playing, at least par, at least mid. And that's all it takes, man. If the defense can play at mid and you got one of the top 5 offenses in the league, you'll be probably in the Super Bowl. You just can't be, a shitty defense and a great offense and hope that, you'll just outscore people. Rarely does that work. And if somehow you do get to the Super Bowl, you will lose. So the Patriots over under 7.5. I could see why they're at 7.5. But I do think that with Bill O'Brien coming in and actually having an offensive coordinator, 7.5. I would give them 8. I'll give the Patriots 8 wins. Um, it's still the New England Patriots, by the way. They got caught for cheating. Um, they used to get caught for cheating a lot, it felt like, with Josh McDaniels, and then he came to Denver and cheated, and you just were wondering, why are they cheating so much? Well, New England was doing practices with, OTAs, but they weren't supposed to be engaging with the players. There's not a lot of information that's out yet, but they've been punished like 2 practices that they can't participate in. So they're not allowed to practice till next week, Wednesday, which will be the first time Bill Belichick is going to address the media about that. But yeah, it's like, dude, you can't be bad and cheat. Like, if you're going to be cheating, you have to at least be good. You can't suck and cheat. But man, I just don't like that about the Patriots, is that they always feel like, I like Tom Brady. I really do. I've kind of grown to like him, but I think I feel like the cheating nature of Bill Belichick and his staff has really put a blemish on Tom Brady's career that I don't necessarily know if that is, even something Tom, signed off on. But it's happening now without Tom there, so it definitely makes it look like he wasn't the one behind it all. But yeah, I don't know, man. The Patriots, to me, they're not really a fun team. There's not a ton of hype. They didn't have a crazy good draft. They did get Christian Gonzalez, um, the one of the best corners in the draft. But the Patriots, to me, are probably the most boring team in the league that could win 8 games. Out of every team, because you have your like Texans and your Cardinals, and you think, oh, they'll win 3 games. I think the Patriots, for a team that could win 8 games, will probably be the most boring 8-win team in the league this year. Um, it's just the way it is. The AFC North, which is, in my opinion, going to be one of the tougher divisions. The Bengals over under is at 11 and a half. 11 and a half. I think that the Bengals are. I think that the Bengals and Jaguars are going to play in the AFC Championship game. And I think it's going to work out that way because I think that the Bengals and the Jaguars will be the number 1 and number 2 seed. So I don't see them playing each other in the playoffs until the AFC Championship game. And that is my pick. And I say that because the Bengals upgraded their defense. They have Joe Burrow. I mean, they're going to be this is the new norm. All right, get used to it. The Bengals are going to be in the AFC Championship game probably more than, 70% of Joe Burrow's career years, I would say. I mean, that it's just who he is. He's a winner. He will find a way to get his team there. He will will them to victory. When he went to the Super Bowl as the most sacked quarterback in the league 2 years ago, he had every excuse to be one and done. That team was not protecting him at all. And he just, when you're a winner, that's all you know. That's all. That's why I love that guy so much, man, is because all he does is win. And he will continue to do that this year. 11 and a half is a really safe place to go. The Bengals have a history of dropping some winnable games early in the season. So I would say 11, 12 wins is probably right where it should be. But I'll tell you this, if the Bengals start the season 3-0 or 4-0, all of a sudden this could be a 14-3 team. Because if they're able to start fast, that's been their problem. If they can start fast, I think that they go from an 11-win team to a 13, 14 win team. The Baltimore Ravens, another team like the Jets. It all is great on paper. Can Lamar stay healthy? How much is Zay Flowers going to actually affect the game? Is Odell going to stay healthy? He's not a number one. He's a number two. So you're asking Zay Flowers to be a number one, or you're asking Nelson Aguilar to be a number one. There's a lot of mouths to feed. OBJ doesn't necessarily come across as the guy that handles those situations extremely well. But you had Cooper Kupp with Odell in LA, right? You don't have a Cooper Kupp. None of these quarterbacks are going to get a triple crown. So, like I said, it looks great on paper. I understand the hype, but I think that this could be a 9-win team. They're projected at 9.5. Cleveland, 8.5. That might be a little low. If Deshaun Watson comes out and if Deshaun Watson comes out and he's in his regular form, I have no reason to think that they would only win 8 games. But they're at 8.5 along with the Steelers. And Mike Tomlin, I feel like one thing we know is that he will be 500 or better by the end of the season. Isn't that kind of his thing? That's what he does every year. So the Steelers had one of the best drafts in the league. So they're at 8.5. I would take the over with the Steelers. I think the Steelers win 9 or more games. And if I had to take the under on one of the teams in the division, it would be Cleveland. They're at 8.5 right now. But I honestly go through this entire division, and every one of these teams could hit the over on this. The AFC South, Jacksonville Jaguars, their over-unders at 9.5. I'm taking the over on that. I believe Jacksonville will win 13 or 14 games this season. I only see them losing about 3 football games and getting the number 1 seed. Why? They remain in one of the worst divisions in the NFL in the AFC South. Some people are saying that they're concerned that Jacksonville is overhyped. I don't think that that's a problem. I think Trevor Lawrence is another guy like Joe Burrow, where he's going to take another jump. We saw it last year towards the end of the season when they needed Trevor Lawrence to step up, and you saw him make comebacks where he was down 21 points in a quarter and a half. Something switched, something clicked. I think that they're coached well. I think their players are playing at a high level. They got Ingram back, and I do think that Calvin Ridley takes off this year in this offense, 1,500 or more yards. This is a big year for Jacksonville. They're going to do what the Bengals did 2 years ago to the NFL. Tennessee Titans are at 7.5. I'm a little inclined to take the under with Tennessee. I just feel like they had, I guess you could call it a window, because they were playing good defense and running the football, which is a great recipe for playing football in January. But at the end of the day, is King Henry going to be able to put the team on his back again? Are they going to be able to stay healthy? Even if they do, is Ryan Tannehill the guy that's going to, take them deep into the playoffs? I do think that they have a good coach. I like their coach, but Mike Vrabel, he's a great coach, but I just wonder if they have the talent to compete with an AFC division or conference that is loaded with talent. Loaded. Okay. And they're going to have to play Jacksonville twice a year. They're going to have some other challenging games if you look at their schedule. And look, that's the reason I have Jacksonville winning that total amount of games, is because look, the Indianapolis Colts and the Houston Texans combined are at 12 wins if you combine their over-under. And that may be on the high side because you have Indianapolis at 6.5. We're not sure how good Anthony Richardson's going to be. And if they go with Gardner Minshew, I think that Gardner is a solid backup. But look, he was the quarterback when Jacksonville went 1-15 in order to draft Trevor Lawrence. I mean, he is a solid backup, but if you don't put him on, in a good situation, I just don't know how it's going to work out for Indianapolis. And if they run with Anthony Richardson off the bat, everybody better be crossing their fingers that he's the real deal. But we've heard it from everybody. The guy's got a learning curve. He's got a lot to learn. His decision making needs to get better. His accuracy needs to get. I mean, none of this sounds like a guy that we're going to throw in and start winning football games right away. So unless I'm missing something, I think 6.5 wins is a little on the high side. They do have, a new head coach in Shane Steichen as their new head coach, and he was the Eagles' offensive coordinator. So I expect their offense to be rolling better than, when they had their old center coming in to be their head coach. I mean, last year was just, let's be real, last year was a shit show. I mean, it was very ugly to be a Colts fan. And I'm saying that as a Broncos fan. But we did see this team, after I'm blanking on his name right now. After the interim head coach came in, we saw them win their first game. I believe they were playing the Texans. And then we saw them almost beat the Eagles, and the Eagles had to make a last-second touchdown to win the game. So it shows you that there was something in there that was able to be ignited when, what is his name? When he came in and took over. But at the same time, is that going to be enough this year with the AFC the way it is? And then Houston Texans, we know that they got CJ Stroud, they got Will Anderson, DeMeco Ryans. The hype is at, a pretty high level right now. Not necessarily hype where the expectations are to make a run to the playoffs, but there is a reason to believe that the Houston Texans are going to go from a 1-2 win team to a 5-6 win team, which is a huge jump if you really think about it. I think it's a reasonable expectation to have. Their over-under is at 5.5. I would take the Texans over. I think that they could win 6 games this year, and DeMeco Ryans have a pretty solid, first year with this team. CJ Stroud, I believe, is an upgrade right away from Davis Mills. So I like CJ Stroud's chances of being the starting quarterback. And, the Texans can't be any worse. They averaged 17 points a game last year. I think that they're going to be better offensively. DeMeco Ryans is going to have that defense playing at a high level, and Will Anderson's going to be, a candidate for Rookie of the Year. I like Houston to win 6 games or more and go over. The AFC West, division that is very close and dear to me. Kansas City. Over under. I feel like this has been the over under for the last couple years. 11.5. Since Patrick Mahomes became the starting quarterback in Andy Reid's offense, the Chiefs have been an offensive powerhouse. They've had 12 or more wins in 4 out of 5 seasons. While the Chiefs' defense isn't perfect, it complements their high-powered offense. Their strategy is to gain an early lead and allow defense to pressure opponents, similar to the Colts during Peyton Manning's prime years. It's so funny that they bring this up after I just discussed this about how really good offenses kind of, they lack on the defensive side. The Chiefs overcame a tough schedule last season to exceed 11.5 wins. They're expected to face a challenging schedule this year. Kansas City should hit over on this mark. I'm going to say under. Kansas City is going to have a 10-win season this year. And I know that's a really bold prediction because they've had 12 or more wins 4 out of the last 5 seasons, but they haven't ever played in a division as tough as this year will be. Kellen Moore is the offensive coordinator for the Chargers. Justin Herbert is going to be healthy. And you know who else will be healthy? Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. The Chargers defense has a lot of potential under head coach Brandon Staley, a new defensive coordinator in Derek Ansley. I think Kellen Moore is able to get the offense going at a higher level. The Denver Broncos brought in Sean Payton. That's all I'm going to say about it because Sean Payton is enough to just say that and move on. Denver is at 8.5. They will go over. And mark my words down. Denver will win more than 8.5 games. And I would bet anything on it because Sean Payton's a winner. And that's all he does. The Vegas Raiders, I'm not sure. I'm not sold on Josh McDaniels. Devontae Adams, he's made a lot of moves. Is Jimmy Garoppolo really a better upgrade than Derek Carr? I don't really think so. And we don't know if he'll even be able to stay healthy. That's why the Raiders had to draft a quarterback in the 3rd round. But they added Tyree Wilson, who was a pretty solid pickup. They traded Derek Carr, which kind of sucks, but they signed Jacoby Myers. I feel like the Raiders are going to stay at around 7 wins this year, and Josh McDaniels will have a new excuse at the end of the season on why he sucks at coaching. But all in all, just between the Chiefs, the Chargers, and the Broncos, and the other opponents that the Chiefs have to play, like the Jaguars and the Eagles and Buffalo and the Bengals, like the Chiefs are going to have their work cut out for them. And if they go even 500 within their division, if they drop one of the Chargers to the Broncos, all of a sudden you see that you're at 10 wins. Look, the Chiefs, their defense is not good enough for me to say that they are going to run away. In a similar way, I think the Bengals are in a division that's going to be as challenging as the AFC West. You could say that the Chargers are the Ravens, and that the Broncos are the Steelers, and that the Raiders are the Browns. But at the end of the day, I think that the Bengals defense is going to be playing at a high level. And I mean, they have T. Higgins, Jamar Chase. I mean, the Chiefs will make do. They did it last year. They'll do it again. They will win a good amount of games, but I'm taking the under this year. It's at 11.5. I think the Chiefs will win 11 or 10 games. And I will take I'm kind of torn on the Chargers. They're at 9.5. I'm not sure about that. I'm inclined to go at 9 and take the under. And then Denver's at 8.5. I'm going to go over. And I think they win 9 or 10 games. And then the Raiders, I think that they go, 7 and 10. That's just how this team feels to me. The Eagles, their over-unders at 10.5. I would normally go, like the Eagles have a really tough stretch. And we've gone over that stretch where they have, 4 weeks where they play, I think they play the Jets, the Chiefs, then they play the 49ers. I mean, and then the Seahawks. The Eagles have it really tough this year, but look, I don't feel like the Eagles should be circling these tough teams and thinking to themselves, "Oh, we're not going to." The Eagles are the team to beat in the NFC, point blank. Period. There's nothing else to be said. So when we're circling hard games for the Eagles, you know that for that team, it is even more difficult. So you can't just circle the tough opponents for the Eagles and not realize that they are the better team, even though they're playing those challenging teams. Look, their over-unders 10.5. I'm totally behind Jalen Hurts. I'm taking the over on this Eagles team. 10.5. I think that they win at least 11 games. They could win as much as probably 12. I know that's not a huge window, but they do have some tough games that they may be tired and drop a couple, but they're not dropping an entire 7 games. Like, get the hell out of here. And then the Dallas Cowboys are at 9.5. Um, I think that's pretty solid. We'll see. Dallas has a lot of talent, so I think that they could win 10 games. I think that's reasonable. So I would take the over maybe by point 0.5 with Dallas. And then Bill, you're gonna hate me, but the Giants and the Commanders, I would take the under. The Commanders are at 7.5, and I would put the Giants at 8. If I had to pick right now, I would say the Giants go 8 and 9, and they're predicted to go 8.5. So if you're gonna take the over, you have to say they're gonna win 9 games. Um, I'm just not sure because I went through their schedule and it is brutal. It is absolutely brutal. 28 hours of traveling. You're going from the East Coast to the West Coast, back and forth. They may have to stay in Arizona, on a Thursday night. I mean, we talked about it hypothetically. We're not sure, but um, I think the Giants were really surprising last year, and I think their 9 wins was really solid. But this is a team that haven't beat the Cowboys in 2 years. They lost to the Eagles 3 times last year. Um, so they are still, the second of, the second worst team in their own division, which is not a good sign when you have a tough schedule. Okay. So if you're going to be the second worst team in your division and have a difficult schedule, you could make a case that I think it's possible that the Cowboys that streak ends. The Giants get their win over the Cowboys. And if that's the case, maybe they get to 9, but I'm not there yet with Daniel Jones to get into the double digits, right? Um, I'm just feeling a little. I'm hesitating because I do believe the NFC East is a tough division. You have the team that went to the divisional round in the Super Bowl, all in your division. And the last game we saw, the Giants had a great measuring stick game. They played Philly. We believe that they had a chance because Daniel Jones was just playing out of his mind against Minnesota. And then he goes and faces the Philadelphia Eagles, and the Eagles, I mean, what was it, 38 to, I mean, they destroyed the Giants. And I'm sorry, but that is the last thing I remember about the Giants. It's not that they beat Minnesota, who we know now that they're a 12-win team with a negative point differential. They're the only team in history to win 12 games with a negative point differential. They were totally overrated, and the Giants were able to win that game. And I believe Minnesota will be a team that pulls way back and wins around 8 games this year. But at the time it felt like, damn, the Giants might be the real deal. But then that last game was kind of a taste of reality. That game showed you where they really were at. Now, they added a lot of weapons. They got weapons in the draft. They got Darren Waller. They got I'm trying to remember what's his name, from Tennessee, for the deep threat. They got some stuff, but I think that it's fair to say, like, they are going to have a tougher schedule this year than they had last year. So, and I really want to drive this point home because I know Bill's a huge Giants fan. This is the final point I want to say is that the Giants can be a better team than they were last year and win less games. Um, we're so accustomed to just saying win total tells the whole entire story about if you were better or worse. Did you, regress or progress, right? I don't think that's the case this year with the Giants schedule in the division they're in. I think that they could win 8 games this season and improve from last year. Jalen Hyatt, thank you. Bill said, "Well, they're going to win 10." LOL. I get your thinking, no, but I choose optimism. I would put money on it. No, I totally get that. I feel the same way about my team. Oh, it's true. We got beat bad. Eagles are going to take the division again. Yeah, and look, this is what's good about having, trust me, I know because I've been in the Chiefs division, well, my whole life, but since Patrick Mahomes has been the gold standard for the AFC, a lot of people are like, "Oh, that must suck playing the Chiefs twice a year." And I'm like, "Not really," because it kind of tells you where you're at. Um, as much as it kind of sucks to have to play the Eagles twice, I mean, if you look at it the way I look at it with the Chiefs, it's an opportunity for me twice a year to, assess where I'm at. Let's say we won 3 in a row, but, they were against the Colts, and then we beat the Jaguars before they got into stride, and then we beat the 49ers, but, Jimmy Garoppolo was the quarterback, and it was his first week, and you're trying to, you're feeling like, "Oh, we're really doing something special here," and then you get smacked by the Kansas City Chiefs, and you are reminded really quick that it's not necessarily that those wins were flukes, but beating some teams is not the same as beating the teams that you would need to beat late in January to be playing in February. We just kind of know what the deal is when we play those types of games. So I'm excited to see that game this year. I'm sure the Giants will be pissed off based on how the year ended. And I think they'll want to go prove to the world, including myself, not that they care about what I say, but people that say similar things as me, that they are not, the bottom feeder of this division. And I'm pumped up. Hell yeah. Let me watch that game. Let me get the Giants, to get a couple clean shots on the Eagles. I would love to see that. Then you got the NFC North. The NFC North with the Detroit Lions at 9.5. Um, I think it's easy to be really high on the Lions because of how they ended the season. But they are still the Lions, and I don't mean that in a way where it's like purgatory where they can't, the Bengals did it. Can the Lions do it? But I do think they're going to need Goff to play at the same level he played last year, and I'm not sure if he's going to be able to duplicate that. Is he going to be able to have another great year? They got a better running back, but they already kind of had a good running back, but it was smart because I guess they didn't have to pay them. But you could make you could make a really great point that Jahmyr Gibbs was not needed. The defense was needed. And you could say, well, they addressed all of these defensive needs in free agency. That may be true, but anytime you change so many positions, so many people 1 year to the next, I'm not going to just assume that the Lions are going to pick up right where they left off. I'm not. Um, this is a different team that they're putting on the field than they put on last year. It may feel like they're just rolling into this next year, but they are not. And I think 9.5 is pretty high. I would take them right now at 9, um, and hope that they prove me wrong. But I think this NFC North division is. I don't think you have a 10-win team in this division. Um, I don't think it's the worst division in the league. I think every team is going to be average, which is, you have some divisions, you got a really good team and a really shitty team. I think the NFC North is going to be the division of average Joes. There won't be any team that's just kicking ass every week in and week out, but every week you're going to have a tough game, whether you're playing Chicago, Minnesota, Green Bay, or the Lions. These guys are going to show up. And I'm inclined to put Detroit at number 1 if I had to pick a playoff spot because, coaching, consistency. I'm not sold on Justin Fields yet. I'm sold on him as a runner, but that is not the name of the game. I need to see more from him. So they're at 7.5 for the over under. I'm willing to still take the under and say Chicago wins 7 games. I'm willing to say Minnesota wins 8 games. And then the Packers are at 7.5. I would take right now the Packers to win seven games, because we don't know what Jordan Love is. So, and plus, you cannot replace Aaron Rodgers like that. Hold on 1 second. Thank you. You're not going to be able to just swap out Aaron Rodgers and expect there not to be a fallback. Now, here's the thing. They got Green Bay at 7.5 this year. But let me ask you this. Is Aaron Rodgers better than Jordan Love? Okay. Now watch Kyle returns with Sean Elway. If and look, we all know the answer to this question. Aaron Rodgers is not better than Jordan Love. So, how many games did the Packers win last season? The Packers last season won 9 games, I believe. Let me just double check really quick. 2022 record. I believe that they were 2021 to 2022. No, 2022 to 2023. It won't let me pull it up. It keeps automatically switching. Here it is. The Packers. This is the AFC. The Packers were 8-9. Okay, so the Packers were 8-9. So you're telling me that the difference between Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love is half of a game? No, really. Like, think about this. They win 8 games last season with Aaron Rodgers. Now they've lost Allen Lazard. They lose Randall Cobb. They lose Mercedes Lewis. They lose Aaron Rodgers. And you're subtracting 0.5? Like, I don't know if there's something that I'm missing here. But unless Jordan Love is really effing good, there's no reason Green Bay should have only been withdrawn 0.5 points. I understand that the Packer, and part of this is just bias because we, like, when we see a team that is, wins around 10 games for 25 years straight, it's hard for us to put 3.5 games on the Packers, and I get that. But we also have to be realistic. The Packers, unless Jordan Love's really good, I don't know about the 7.5. Now, I'm not giving you my personal gut feeling right now. That's not what this is. I'm not going to do my prediction because my gut tells me that the Packers could end up with eight wins, 9 wins because they don't have a tough schedule. But taking away heart and gut and just going off of the numbers, 7.5 might be way too high for Green Bay. But look, I feel the same way about the Bears in Minnesota. I really feel like Detroit, this is their year to run away as NFC North champions. And I do think you're going to have a really solid 3-way battle going on for second place in the division. But it is worth noting that the Packers have lost, I would say like 3 of their top 7 most valuable assets offensively, and they've only gone down 0.5. I don't understand it. And then the last 2 divisions, you got the NFC South, which was the worst division last year, where you had Tampa that made the playoffs just because someone had to go. New Orleans, 9.5. Now, last year, there were some people that had really high hopes for New Orleans. They believed that New Orleans was going to have a good season with Jameis Winston and Andy Dalton, whatever. Um, the Saints completely whiffed in a lot of critical games last season. Um, they definitely have regressed, but Derek Carr should be a considerable upgrade. And even if you're not a huge Derek Carr fan, it's definitely an upgrade over Andy Dalton and Jameis Winston. By the way, I thought Andy Dalton played pretty good last year for what it's worth. But look, Derek Carr is definitely, a top 12 quarterback in the league, maybe. So they got a guy now. They liked what they saw from Chris Olave. I think that this is a Saints. They could start getting back into their winning ways. Um, Look, the town got a taste of what winning's like for a long time. They have a really good home field advantage because they don't sell tickets to away teams. It's like a whole thing. It's hard to get tickets to a game if you're not a Saints fan. Their home field advantage is good. The Superdome, I could understand wanting to go 9.5 for the Saints, but I'm going to go in the under and take the 9 for now. I do think 9-win season is still an upgrade, and it's a step in the right direction. And then the Atlanta Falcons, their over unders at 8. Like, I don't think it's crazy to think that Atlanta could win 9 games. Okay, they had Tyler Algier. He had 1,000 rushing yards as a rookie, and then they just added the best rookie running back in the draft in Bijan Robinson. They know what they do. They have an identity. Okay, they are a running football team with Arthur Smith. I think that's one of the most important things for a team is to have an identity. And out of all the teams in this division, I really do feel that Atlanta is the only team that knows who they are and what they do, and they do that thing well. But they needed their defense to play at a higher level if they're going to be a run first team, and they upgraded their defense. They got Calais Campbell. They got a lot of different guys to come in and play for this team. I think Atlanta could be a sneaky favorite to win this division. And then Carolina's at 7.5, and Tampa's at 6.5. It depends on how high you're on Bryce Young. I mean, this is a rookie quarterback. I mean, we don't really know until they go out there and take a snap what they are. But even in a weak division, the Panthers should be able to compete for the league's worst record. Um, I think that this could be a 6-win team, and that's a step up from having the first overall pick. Even though they had to trade to get that, they weren't too far down the list. So yeah, Carolina, I think that they get a little bit better. You have to when you add a better quarterback. But I think it's important to manage those expectations. I think Carolina finishes third or fourth in their own division. And then Tampa. We're going to see what Baker Mayfield is. He's got his last chance right now to make himself worthy of being a starting quarterback. If he doesn't get it done this year, he is not going to be a starter anymore. This is his last shot, his last opportunity to seize everything that he's ever wanted for one moment. We're going to see if he captures it or if you let it slip. Or if you'll let it slip. But this is his last chance, the last dance, if you will. But Tampa, they are a team that we talked about it. There's a lot of really bad teams that are trending in the right direction, but they're still a 6-7 win team. They're not going to do that like the Texans. I think Tampa is actually one of the teams still trending down. They're going the wrong way. And I think that unless Baker Mayfield plays out of his ass this season, this is going to be probably a team that you see in the top 3-4 picks next season. And then the NFC West is a pretty tough division. Look, I know Sean McVay, like it's a season, a league of recency. What have you done for me lately? Let's just forget about the Rams. Like Sean McVay's a top 5 to 10 coach, probably top 5. Last year he had a lot of injuries. There was no depth. They lost Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp. Their offensive line and defensive line were annihilated. Let's not forget, if Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp and they get a solid line, that this is still a team that could win 9-10 games. You could blink and it happens, because of Sean McVay. Now their over-under is only at 7.5. But it's, the Mike Clay is projecting 4 wins and 9 losses, 4-9. That's not even a real record. But yeah, I feel like the Rams are always going to be competitive. They're going to show up. Stafford's healthy. But how well are they going to be? Well, I don't think they win 6 games like last year. I think they could win 8 or 9 games. And then you have the Seahawks, who added JSN and added the best cornerback in the draft. Geno Smith was playing really good last year. Let's see if he can keep playing well. Kenneth Walker, an amazing running back. All the pieces are together. Their over-unders at 8.5, which I think is a low one. I think I would take the over, but only at 9, just because of this division. But I do think that this team can win 9 games next season. I really do believe that. And then San Francisco, they're saying that Brock Purdy is going to be able to start throwing football soon. We don't know if it's going to be him or Trey Lance week 1 when the season kicks off, but we do know that this 49ers team is really, really good, and they've added some pieces so they can get after the quarterback on the defensive side of the ball. Their defense is second to none. Maybe the Eagles are up there, but 49ers right now, if they can have a healthy Brock Purdy, 11.5 is the over-under. I would take the over for this 49ers team, but not by much. I would take the over at 12. So that is the NFC West, and that is the end. As you see, the window is really small, but from what, 5.5 to 11.5 is your entire gap there. But there's not, there's about half of them that I don't agree with. So I think that that's a good number. What I'm going to do next for next episode tomorrow is I'm going to look at the over under before the season started, and I want to see how many times the over hit, the under hit, how many times was the league right or really close to being right, and we'll see how close they were, because look, there's going to be teams that are going to just surprise the hell out of you. You're going to have your Giants, you're going to have your Jets from last season. You're going to have your teams that just are, who's it going to be? Isn't it a fun game to play? I mean, what if it's the Dolphins? What if the Dolphins are healthy and they go out there and they win 13 games and they are a straight powerhouse and the best offensive team in the league, and Vic Fangio's defense, they're top 5. I mean, if you're going to predict something, you have to have your sneaky surprise team. I'm definitely going to be a homer this year and go with the Broncos. One reason, Sean Payton, his first year with the Saints, took him to an NFC Championship game. The year before that, they were worse in the league. There's a lot more talent on this team than there was on that Saints team. So I'm going to be a homer. But you know what? It feels good this year to actually have a reason to be a homer. I have no solid excuse for doing it in the past, but I can do it this year. And then Bill said, Carr's an upgrade and the system is broken. It's not going to work for the Saints. Yeah, yeah, they're going to have to make sure that they're gelling out there. And he said the Jaguars were a surprise too, at least to me. Yeah, the Jags were a surprise to everyone. Personally, I was really high on Trevor Lawrence, so not totally surprised there. Um, but yeah, I really think that they even take a step higher and they become the number one seed in the AFC. So, man, can we just play some ball already? I am so fired up for this season, man. This is going to be such a fun season with the AFC totally loaded the way it is. I am so excited. I also before I log off, I wanted to say I applied for a job working for the NFL as a Amazon Next Gen Stat researcher, and it's actually based out of LA. So I thought I would tell you about that, Bill. And Bill said, "Cheers, Kyle. You can join me on Team Homer." You got to do it, man. I like even last year, Rick was telling me that the Bears are going to win 6 games, and then the day before we did our season predictions, which I'm so excited for to do this year, he comes on and goes, "The Bears are going to win 12 games," and I'm like, "What happened? You were just telling me 2 days ago," and he's like, "No, no." It's like the closer you get, the higher your expectations can continue to climb until you get to a point where you're just completely delusional. Um, yeah, that's the roller coaster that I'm on. And look, it's only up from here. Probably by division prediction time, I'll be predicting an AFC Championship appearance, but you guys are gonna have to just enjoy that ride. And Bill said, "No shit, nice. I hope to all above you get it." Thank you. I appreciate that, Bill. Yeah, I'm hoping too. So I'll keep you guys updated with that. But as always, thanks for coming in. Thank you for supporting the channel. We've been doing really good getting views on uh our episodes after we're done recording them. A couple of them were in the 40s. So to everybody that watches these the next day or whenever you have time, hey, I really appreciate that. Thanks for throwing it on. And there was a Ravens fan that messaged me yesterday, and he wanted me to make a Ravens rap for him for their season. I told him he would have to jump in here live and join us a couple times, and that I would do it for him. So um, I'm super excited about that. There's a lot to be pumped up about. This is a really good time for our channel, and it's continuing to grow. We got 308 subscribers right now, and it's all uphill from here. So thank you guys as always. Tomorrow I will see you guys. I'm gonna do the episode earlier in the day. So maybe we can get some of the East Coast in here, get some East Side love, if you will. But until then, I will see you guys. I hope you have a great night and go Broncos.